You must have heard so many times to train for strength, train for hypertrophy, and train for endurance. You must have also learned that resting time for strength, for hypertrophy, and endurance are all different. But the real question is this: what exactly does it mean to train for strength, hypertrophy, and endurance? Stay to the end of this video and you'll find out. I'm going to start explaining with endurance. Endurance training means continuous supply of energy for a longer duration of time. This could mean cardio, which could be jogging for a long distance, skipping, swimming, cycling, or it could also mean doing a HIIT workout, or even simply, not simply now, but lifting lighter weight for higher rep in a short period of time. If you are lifting for endurance, it is recommended you rest for 30 seconds in between sets. And the most important thing you should know about endurance training is the body uses fat as the source of energy when you are training for endurance. Okay, so your body burns more fat when you are training for endurance than when you are doing other forms of training. That is why it is mostly recommended for those who want to lose weight, to engage in cardiovascular activities like jogging, cycling, skipping, and other forms of cardiovascular activity. So that is the meaning of endurance training. Now, strength training. You see, unlike endurance training that demands that you give that continuous supply of energy for a longer duration of time, strength training demands that you gather all that energy in you and compress it into just at most 5 reps. Strength training is done with compound exercises like the bench press, overhead press, the squat, the deadlift. And one thing I like about strength training is that it is more applicable in real life when situations arise that demand that you lift or carry or push or pull a heavy load. You want to be able to do that. You can't tell them that, oh no, I don't do strength, I do only endurance. No, in real life you need strength. So training for strength helps you to be more physically powerful. And another thing is, when you train for strength, you train heavy, and when you train heavy, you activate multiple group of muscles at once, which trigger the muscle growth hormone. Now, unlike endurance that the source of energy is fat, when you train for strength, your energy is gotten from ATP, adenosine triphosphate. I explained what ATP is in my previous video. You might want to go and watch that after this one. When you train for strength, you use up the ATP in your muscles, and that is why you are advised to rest for a longer period of time so that the dispelled ATP will be replaced. So unlike endurance training that you can rest for 30 seconds, in strength training you are advised to rest between 2 minutes and 5 minutes. Now, hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is a physiological word that means the enlargement of a tissue due to increase in size of its cells. So in this context, hypertrophy basically means growth of the muscles. If you just want to grow your muscles, you just want to tone your muscles, you don't want to be strong, you don't want to have endurance, you just want the muscles, no stress. Hypertrophy is for you. Hypertrophy is like in the middle. Okay, you won't go for a longer duration of time like endurance, and you won't go for a shorter duration of time like for strength. You are in the middle. You won't rest for a shorter period of time like for endurance, and you won't rest for a longer period of time like for strength. You are in the middle. Endurance might be going for like 30, 50, 100 reps. Strength might be going for 5 reps. Hypertrophy between 5 and 10. You're not lifting light, you're not lifting heavy. In that way, you are constantly stimulating the muscle tissue in an alright duration of time, with not too lightweight and not too heavyweight, which will cause hypertrophy of the muscles. Now, what gives the body energy when training for hypertrophy is glycogen gotten from carbohydrates. So when you're training for hypertrophy, your body uses glycogen. Now, the question that you might be asking is, which should we train for? Strength, endurance, or hypertrophy? I would advise and I would recommend that you should do the fusion of all. You should train for strength, you should train for hypertrophy, and you should train for endurance. See, like I stated before, if you train for strength, if you train heavy, you will not just look strong, you will actually be strong. I also pointed out that if you train heavy, you activate multiple group of muscles at once, which will release testosterone. Now, testosterone is responsible for muscle growth. If you have a high level of testosterone and you train for hypertrophy, you build bigger muscles. Now, hypertrophy training also releases testosterone, but not in larger doses like that of strength training. So you can see how strength training complements hypertrophy. Now, if you train for heavy, you train for hypertrophy, and you don't train for endurance, sure, you're going to have the muscles, but you're going to have dirty muscles. And what do I mean by dirty muscles? Dirty muscles are muscles that are covered with fat. If you skip your cardio, your muscles will all be covered with fat. You will look like those power lifters. Yeah, you will be strong, you will look strong, but you will not look aesthetic. So endurance training will help you to shed excess fat in your body. Okay, so it is advised you train for strength, you train for endurance, and you train for hypertrophy. How I do mine is I go for a long jog at least 4 times a week, to build my endurance, to shed the extra fat. And then during my training days, I start with strength and I conclude with hypertrophy. So you have to schedule yourself to engage in both strength, hypertrophy, and endurance.